Good morning, Baker Babes. Oh, it's a wonderful Wednesday. Can you believe we only have today, tomorrow, and Friday left of school? I've enjoyed reading some of your writing about the end of the year, and I can't wait to read some more. I do know that Ronald Dahl's book, James and the Giant Peach, is getting really good. I'm really wondering what they're going to do. We're on chapter 18 already. Can you believe it? Nice short chapters. A minute later, they were out in the open, standing on the very top of the peach near the stem, blinking their eyes in the strong sunlight and peering nervously around. What happened? Where are we? But this is impossible! Unbelievable! Terrible! I told you we were bobbing up and down, the ladybug said. We're in the middle of the sea, cried James. And indeed they were. A strong current and a high wind had carried the peach so quickly away from the shore that already the land was out of sight. All around them lay the vast black ocean, deep and hungry. Little waves were bibbling against the side of the peach. But how did it happen? They cried. Where are the fields? Where are the woods? Where's England? Nobody, not even James, could understand how in the world a thing like this could have come about. Ladies and gentlemen, the old green grasshopper said, trying very hard to keep the fear and disappointment out of his voice, I'm afraid that we find ourselves in a rather awkward situation. Awkward, cried the earthworm. My dear old grasshopper, we are finished. Every one of us is about to perish. I may be blind, you know, but that much I can see quite clearly. Off with my boots, shouted the centipede. I cannot swim in with my boots on. I can't swim at all, said Ladybug. Nor can I, wailed the glowworm. Nor I, said Miss Spider. None of us three girls can swim a single stroke. But you won't have to swim, said James calmly. We're floating beautifully, and sooner or later a ship is bound to come along and pick us up. They all stared at him in amazement. Are you quite sure that we're not sinking? The ladybug asked. Of course I'm sure, answered James. Go and look for yourselves. They all ran over to the side of the peach and peered down at the water below. The boy is quite right, said the old green grasshopper. We are floating beautifully. Now we must all sit down and keep perfectly calm. Everything will be all right in the end. What absolute nonsense, cried the earthworm. Nothing is ever all right in the end, and well, you know it. Poor earthworm, the ladybug said, whispering in James's ear. He loves to make everything into a disaster. He hates to be happy. He's only happy when he is gloomy. Now, isn't that odd? But then, I suppose just being an earthworm is enough to make a person pretty gloomy. Don't you agree? If this peach is not going to sink, the earthworm was saying, and if we are not going to be drowned, then every one of us is just going to starve to death instead. Do you realize that we haven't had a thing to eat since yesterday morning? By golly, he's right, cried the centipede. For once, earthworm is right. Of course I'm right, said earthworm. And we're not likely to find anything around here either. We shall get thinner and thinner and thirstier until we shall die a slow and grisly death from starvation. I'm dying already. I'm slowly shriveling up for want of food. Personally, I would rather drown. But good heavens, you must be blind, said James. You know very well I'm blind, snapped the earthworm. There's no need to rub it in. I didn't mean that, James said quickly. I'm sorry, but can't you see that? See? Shouted the poor earthworm. How can I see if I'm blind? James took a deep, slow breath. Can't you realize, he said patiently, that we have enough food here to last us for weeks and weeks? Where? They said. Where? Why, the peach, of course. Our whole ship is made out of food. Jumpling Jehoshaphat, they cried. We never thought of that. My dear James, said the old green grasshopper, laying a front leg affectionately on James's shoulder. I don't know what we'd do without you. You are so clever. Ladies and gentlemen, we are saved again. We most certainly are not, said the earthworm. You must be crazy. We can't eat the ship. It's the only thing that's keeping us up. We shall starve if we don't, said the centipede. And we shall drown if we do, cried the earthworm. Oh dear, said the old green grasshopper. Now we're worse off than before. Couldn't we just eat a little bit of it? Asked Mrs. Spider. I'm so dreadfully hungry. You can eat all you want, James answered. It would take us weeks and weeks to make any sort of a dent in this enormous peach. Surely you can see that. Good heavens, he's right again, cried the old green grasshopper, clapping his hands. It would take weeks and weeks, of course it would, but let's not go making a lot of holes all over the deck. I think we'd better simply scoop it out of the tunnel over there, the one that we've just come up by. Excellent idea, said the ladybug. What are you all looking so worried about, What are you looking so worried about, Earthworm? The centipede asked. What's the problem? The problem is, the Earthworm said. The problem is that there is no problem. Everyone burst out laughing. Cheer up, Earthworm, they said. Come and eat. And they all went over to the tunnel entrance and began scooping out great chunks of juicy, golden-colored peach flesh. Oh, marvelous, said the centipede, stuffing it into his mouth. Delicious, said the old green grasshopper. Just fabulous, said the glowworm. Oh, my, said the ladybug primly. What a heavenly taste. She looked up at James and she smiled, and James smiled back at her. They sat out on the deck together, both of them chewing away happily. You know, James, the ladybug said, up until this moment, I have never in my life tasted anything except those tiny little green flies that live on rose bushes. They have a perfectly delightful flavor, but this peach is even better. Isn't it glorious, Miss Spider said, coming over to join them. Personally, I had always thought that a big, juicy, caught-in-the-web bluebottle was the finest dinner in the world, until I tasted this. What a flavor, the centipede cried. It's terrific. There's nothing like it. There never has been, and I should know because I personally have tasted all the finest foods in the world. Whereupon the centipede, with his mouth full of peach and with juice running down all over his chin, suddenly burst into song. Patty, you're going to have to find a plug to plug that in because it's not going to be charged enough, okay? I've eaten many strange and scrumptious dishes in my time, like jellied gnats and dandy-prats and earwigs cooked in slime. And mice with rice, they're really nice when roasted in their prime, but don't forget to sprinkle them with just an inch of grime. I've eaten fresh mud burgers by the greatest cooks there are, and scrambled dregs and stink bugs' eggs and hornets stewed in tar, and pails of snails and lizards' tails, and beetles by the jar. A beetle is improved just by a splash of vinegar. I often eat boiled slobbages, they're grand when served beside minced doodlebugs and curried slugs, and have you ever tried mosquitoes' toes and swampfish roes, most delicately fried? The only trouble is they disagree with my inside. I'm mad for crispy waspings on a piece of buttered toast, and pickled spines of porcupines, and then a gorgeous roast of dragon's flesh of well-hung, not fresh. It costs $1 at most, and comes to you in barrels if you order it by post. I crave the tasty tentacles of octopi for tea. I like hot dogs, I love hot frogs, and surely you'll agree. A plate of soil with Injun's oil, a super recipe. I hardly need to mention that it's practically free. For dinner on my birthday, shall I tell you what I chose? Hot noodles made from poodles on a slice of garden hose, and rather smelly jelly made of armadillo's toes. The jelly is delicious, but you have to hold your nose. Now comes, the centipede declared, the burden of my speech. These foods are rare beyond compare. Some are right out of reach. But there's no doubt I'd go without 1,000,000 plates of each for one small mite, one tiny bite of this fantastic peach. Everybody was feeling happy now. The sun was shining brightly out of a soft blue sky, and the day was calm. The giant peach, with the sunlight glinting on its side, was like a massive golden ball sailing over the sea. Miles, turn off the TV, please, and play with your doggie. Look, cried the centipede, just as they were finishing their meal. Look at that funny, thin, black things gliding through the water over there. They all swung around to look. There are 2 of them, said Miss Spider. There are lots of them, said the ladybug. What are they? Asked the earthworm, getting worried. They must be some kind of fish, said the old green grasshopper. Perhaps they've come to say hello. Oh, what do you think they are? No! Bad dog. Miles, please come play with your doggy. Bad dog. She's a little stinker pot. What is coming? I'm a little nervous. They're sharks! Cried the earthworm. I bet you anything you like that they are sharks and they have come along to eat us up. What absolute rot, the centipede said, but his voice seemed suddenly to have a little shaky, and he wasn't laughing. I'm positive they are sharks, said the earthworm. I know they are sharks. Miles, please help me by playing with the dog. And so, in actual fact, did everybody else, but they were too frightened to admit it. There was a short silence. They all peered down anxiously at the sharks who were cruising slowly around and around the peach. Just assuming they are sharks, the centipede said. There still can't possibly be any danger if we stay up here. But even as he spoke, one of those thin black fins suddenly changed direction and came cutting swiftly through the water right up to the side of the peach itself. The shark paused and stared up at the company with small evil eyes. Go away, they shouted. Go away, you filthy beast! Slowly, almost lazily, the shark opened his mouth, which was big enough to have swallowed a perambulator, and made a lunge at the peach. They all watched aghast. And now, as though at a signal from the leader, all the other sharks came swimming in toward the peach, and they all clustered around it and began to attack it furiously. They must have been 20 or 30 of them at least, all pushing and fighting and lashing their tails and churning the water into a froth. Panic and pandemonium broke out immediately on top of the peach. Oh, we're finished now, cried Miss Spider, wringing her feet. They'll eat up the whole peach, and then there'll be nothing left for us to stand on, and they'll start on us. She's right, shouted the ladybug. We're lost forever. Oh, I don't want to be eaten, wailed the earthworm. But they will take me first of all because I am fat and juicy and I have no bones. Is there nothing we can do? Asked the ladybug, appealing to James. Surely you can think of a way out of this. Suddenly, they were all looking at James. Think, begged Miss Spider. Think, James, think. Come on, said the centipede. Come on, James. There must be something we can do. Their eyes waited upon him, tense, anxious, pathetically hopeful. There is something I believe we might try, James Henry Trotter said slowly. I'm not saying that it'll work. Tell us, cried the earthworm. Tell us quick. We'll try anything you say, said the centipede, but hurry, hurry, hurry. Be quiet and let the boy speak, said the ladybug. Go on, James. They all moved a little closer to him. There was a longish pause. Go on, they cried frantically. Go on! And all the time while they were waiting, they could hear the sharks threshing around in the water below them. It was enough to make anyone frantic. Come on, James, the ladybug said, coaxing him. I'm afraid it's no good after all, James murmured, shaking his head. I'm terribly sorry. I forgot. We don't have any string. We need hundreds of yards of string to make this work. What sort of string? Asked the old green grasshopper sharply. Any sort, so long as it's strong. But my dear boy, that's exactly what we do have. We've got all you want. How? Where? The silkworm, cried the old green grasshopper. Didn't you ever notice the silkworm? She's still downstairs. She never moves. She just lies there sleeping all day long. But we can easily wake her up and make her spin. And what about me, may I ask, said Miss Spider. I can spin just as well as any silkworm. What's more, I can spin patterns. Can you make enough between you? Asked James. As much as you want. And quickly? Of course, of course. And would it be strong? The strongest there is. as thick as your finger. But why? What are you going to do? I'm going to lift this peach clear out of the water, said James announced firmly. You're mad, cried the earthworm. It's our only chance. The boy's crazy. He's joking. Come on, James, Ladybug said gently. How are you going to do it? Sky hooks, I suppose, jeered the centipede. Seagulls, James answered calmly. The place is full of them. Look up there. They all looked up and saw a great mass of seagulls wheeling around and around in the sky. I'm going to take a long silk string, James went on, and I'm going to loop one end of it around a seagull's neck. And then I'm going to tie the other end to the stem of the peach. He pointed to the peach stem, which was standing up like a short, thick mast in the middle of the deck. Then I'm going to make it another seagull, and do the same thing again, and then another and another. Ridiculous, they shouted. Absurd. Poppycock. Balderdash. Madness. And the old green grasshopper said, how can a few seagulls lift an enormous thing like this up into the air and all of us as well? It would take hundreds, thousands. There is no shortage of seagulls, James answered. Look for yourself. We'll probably need 400, 500, 600, maybe even 1,000. I don't know. I shall simply go on hooking them up to the stem until we have enough to lift us. They'll be bound to lift us in the end, just like balloons. You give someone enough balloons to hold, really enough, and then up he goes. And a seagull has far more lifting power than a balloon. If only we have the time to do it. If only we are not sunk first by those awful sharks. You're absolutely off your head, said the earthworm. How on earth do you propose to get a loop of string around a seagull's neck? I suppose you're going to fly up there yourself and catch it? The boy's dotty, said the centipede. Let him finish, said the ladybug. Go on, James. How would you do it? With bait. Bait? What sort of bait? With a worm, of course. Seagulls love worms, didn't you know that? And luckily for us, we have here the biggest, fattest, pinkest, juiciest earthworm in the world. You can stop right there, said the earthworm sharply. That's quite enough. Go on, the others said, beginning to grow interested. Go on. The seagulls have already spotted him, James continued. That's why there's so many of them circling around. But they daren't come down and get him while the rest of us are standing here. So this is what... Stop, cried the earthworm. Stop, stop, stop. I won't have it. I refuse. I... Be quiet, said the centipede. Mind your own business. I like that. My dear earthworm, you're going to be eaten anyway, so what difference does it make whether it's sharks or seagulls? I won't do it. Why don't we hear what the plan is first, said the old green grasshopper. I don't give a hoot what the plan is, cried the earthworm. I'm not going to be pecked to death by a bunch of seagulls. You will be a martyr, said the centipede. I shall respect you for the rest of my life. So will I, said Miss Spider, and your name will be in all the newspapers. Earthworm gives life to save friends. But he won't have to give his life, James told them. Now listen to me. This is what we'll do. I'll see you tomorrow with what they're going to do.